What it is, what it do, cyber world. It is your girl, the one, the only Ash Said It. AshSaidIt.com, AshSaidIt.com. Welcome to the Ash Said It Daily Podcast Show. I appreciate you guys for all of your love and support. We are on the heels of 1,500 episodes. When I started the show back in 2014, I had no idea that it would turn into this, and I'm so blessed and so thankful that you guys continue to just, usher on with me as we continue this somewhat of a quarantine life. But even though we're living a quarantine life, doesn't mean that you can't still get some good reads going on, all right? So today, we are fortunate to have with us author, activist, and advocate, the wonderfully, beautifully talented Chandler. Hey, Taylor.
Hey, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing today?
I'm living the dream.
All right. That's the plus. So, Taylor, what part of the country are you holding down right now?
I live right outside of D.C. I work in D.C. for a Black-led organization called Us Helping Us, dealing with people that are living or, and I do mean living, with HIV or PrEP.
Gotcha. And how did you get involved with the organization?
5 years ago was a bumpy ride, and I went through a couple of years that were turmoil, and I wanted to figure out how I could do something to make my life feel meaningful again. And so I got involved with originally Capital Pride Alliance, which does Capital Pride volunteering. Then I got involved volunteering for May is All About Trans, and then that led to meeting the executive director of Us Helping Us, Dr. Hickson, and earlier this year he created a position for me, and it has been the most perfect fit ever since. And I love what I do because I love helping. I primarily work with Black and brown transgender women, and the work is rewarding. DC is a very chocolate city. And, it's funny, people, when they talk with me on the phone and do meetings and stuff, when they finally meet me in person, they're like, oh, you're white. And I'm like, yeah, but, what does that matter other than there are times I can get into spaces that sometimes my Black and brown brothers and sisters can't. Yeah. But I always bring my girl, my boy along because no one can tell their story better than they can.
Absolutely. And that's beautiful. I love you for that. That energy and just keeping the conversation going, and more importantly, having a voice for those that sometimes don't have a voice or, for whatever reason wouldn't be in the arena. So that works. I like that. Yes. All right. So Taylor, so you've got what many would look at as just an amazing life. You're servicing others. You have a wonderful husband. You have 2 beautiful children, and you are, Miss, author extraordinaire, and you're doing all these wonderful things. But how much of this did you actually see for yourself, like when you were younger?
When I was younger, funny enough, I wanted to be a dancer. And then one day, after probably 10 years of dance lessons, I discovered what dancers make and how competitive it was. And the dream of dancing went out the window. I always saw myself when I was younger as being someone that was going to be in the limelight. Which sounds so funny, but I wanted to act or dance I love that adoration from a crowd. And so, funny enough, I became a sign language interpreter, which puts me on a stage, puts me in front of people, and I did that for 12 years. But, I don't think that I had some specific goal, and even if I did, I left home at 15. I won't bore you with all the intricacies and details of that, but, I grew up really quick. I emancipated from my family. I did things that I wouldn't do now to survive and to put myself through college. And, it is what it is. We all have a sad story in some way, shape, or form, but I'd like to think that I've come out on the other side.
Yeah, you absolutely have. You are an inspiration to so many people, regardless of background, religion, or sexuality, anything of that nature. Just to see like everything, just hearing some of your story, I was like, I gotta talk to her because she's got an amazing story of just inspiration and how you can triumph through whatever it is that you're going through and whatever it is that you're facing. So, as we're going into, congratulations on your third book, madam.
Thank you so much, darling.
So, congratulations on that. Let's talk about some of the inspiration behind this book.
Jude Patton came to me probably a year and a half ago, and he was like, I know you're not over 50 or an elder, but I think your story is important to people that are growing older, because, LGBTQ people, for one reason or another, we've never been thought of as living long term, especially people that identify as intersex or trans, because of so much violence and misunderstanding. So he sent me this outline of how to kind of go through questions to put my story together. And what ended up happening is I told a story so vulnerable and raw, and I was like, oh my God, this is good. And it actually inspired me to finish my fourth book, which will come, well, technically it'll be a fifth book, to come out in the end of next year. Really telling my story, but not weaponizing it. Telling my story, but not outing people. I've decided I'm going to change a lot of names, but I'll tell the stories. And in the beginning of the year, next year, I'm collaborating with August McLaughlin, who does Girl Boner Radio, and I'm doing a section of her book with, I think it's with a psychologist, about sexual trauma and finding your way back to intimacy. So I'm always trying to do something. But for me, this book was as healing as it was informative for the people that are going to read it. The elephant in the room, obviously, in some ways, Michael Phelps. 5 years ago when he got the DUI and people saw me leave his house and then wanted to know who I was, and then eventually in November of that year outed me in the international media. It was in everything. And people called me everything but human. And at first I struggled with labels. I'd lived stealth my whole life. I was born intersex. I see transgender as a verb. And these days I'm just a woman. But then I realized that it was important to have those labels, and I was given a platform and a voice that I needed to use. But what I didn't expect was the backlash, that people couldn't believe that the most decorated Olympian of all time could date or love somebody like me. And that's what, to me, became the story. He's never spoken publicly one way or the other. And for a long time, I was very angry about that. But, I understand media a lot better now than I did then. And I understand why Octagon, his management team, decided to go the way they did. And, in 2014, the world wasn't ready for that story. It was just a few months later that Caitlyn Jenner came out, and I've often said I wish she would have done it sooner, because it would have made my life a whole lot easier. But nobody can say they don't know somebody transgender now. And initially, I didn't identify that way, but it's an umbrella term. And the meaning of it is you're not the sex you were assigned at birth. And I'm not. And that's why, even though I'm diagnosed intersex, I still say I'm transgender. And in another part, it's just easier for people to understand, and it doesn't require so much storytelling.
Gotcha. So please educate us. What is the term intersex? What does that mean?
It can mean a lot of different things. Once again, an umbrella term. There's about 55 plus variations of gender, or sex, however you want to look at it. Gender is kind of what's between your ears, and sex is what's between your legs. And so with intersex, what it typically means is you have some combination of XX and XY chromosomes going on. Now, how that manifests, whether it's in genitalia, ambiguous genitalia, instead of ovaries, a girl might have testes up in there. Mm-hmm. The way that we would react to hormones during puberty. There's a lot of different things. My specific is called mosaic. I possess XX and XY chromosomes. I had ambiguous genitalia. They decided to do gender mutilation surgery when I was an infant to make me fit in a binary world. And that was kept a secret from me for many years. And I was made to feel like there was always something wrong with me that needed to be fixed. And, when I was like 11 or 12 and the truth came out, I was very angry. And, it's like I realized there really wasn't something wrong with me. The only thing that was wrong was the people around me trying to make me be something I'm not. And, it was a lot, but I didn't think I owed anybody an explanation. A lot of times people think that trans women are being murdered because of deception, and I can assure you that the numbers don't support that. Statistically, it is intimate partner violence that takes the lives of especially Black trans women. It's people they knew. It's kind of like we live in this culture where masculinity is not fluid, and we're taught to be masculine is so severe that if you date someone that's trans and let's say your boys find out, it's not cool. So what do? You beat her, you kill her, you show you're a man. And that's unfortunately all of us. It's all of our faults because that's the way we're raising young men, especially young men of color. Masculinity is so important, and it's such a vivid, integral part of Black culture. And, at the same time, if you're looking at someone that looks like a woman, you like women, regardless of what's between their legs. If you had a car accident and lost your lower extremities, you wouldn't automatically think you're a man because you didn't have a vagina. And if I, took someone's penis and put it on you, that wouldn't automatically make you a man. That would make you a woman that happened to have a penis. And people don't think in these terms. They want to get so caught up in our genitalia that it's sad and misleading.
It is, and that's why it's so important to have these conversations. And I'm glad that it's being put out in culture a little bit more. Maybe not necessarily on the scale that it should be, but I'm glad that people are having the conversations, because I feel like that a lot can be missed in communication, and a lot can be missed in just assumptions and people assuming X, Y, and Z. So it's so important to have the conversations and to have the information out there so that people can find some kind of common ground. Now, obviously, there's people out there that are just not going to be open-minded, and that's a given. But they can't argue and say that the information isn't out there.
Right, absolutely. When I wrote the book, it's a love story. Right. People can think what they want of me or Michael Phelps, but it truly was a teenage love affair. And we didn't break up because of my gender. We broke up because he had problems with fidelity, and he was getting ready to go back to the Olympics, and he was pulled in a lot of different directions. And people can't accept that. He did not know my gender situation when we first were together and started dating, but prior to everything being made public, he was made aware. And unfortunately, it was ugly the way it happened because he was in rehab. But the story was coming out, and I didn't want him to be blindsided, nor Drew or Peter at Octagon. So, I was very upfront and honest with them, but this was the first time I'd really been honest in my life. Because I never told men I dated, I didn't tell girlfriends, I didn't tell men that I was married to. And people think that Michael is the first, limelight someone that you'd recognize their name. That's not true at all. I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I've been in the Hotlanta, and let me tell you, I have a thing for athletes, always have, and I've dated several, and I have the receipts. I have the pictures. I didn't grow up with social media.
Right.
So I think people are going to be pretty surprised. And there's people that I've dated or loved or had love affairs with that are probably bigger than Michael Phelps would have been at the time I was dating him, because he was retired when I met him.
Right.
He was very low key, very chill.
Yeah. So ultimately, Taylor, what do you want people to get from this particular book?
I want people to be able to tell their truth and be okay with their truth. I want people to go through life and be true to themselves. I don't want them to live, I want my life, to be like a cautionary tale, so that other girls and boys and people, because we do have non-binary in the community and gender non-conforming, can live their life the way they want and know that that's okay. At the end of the day, we're human. We all deserve health equity, sustainable jobs, access to health care. We deserve love. And that's what I want people to know. And, we get so caught up in religion and different things that really, at the end of the day, your relationship is with God and whoever that God is to you. And, one of the things I learned from a very young age is, that's a one-on-one relationship. God didn't judge people. God hung out with the hookers and the hoes and the pimps and the razzle dazzlers. And so why people think that to be a Christian means that you live this unrealistic, perfect life is silly to me. And so with telling my story, I'm hoping it normalizes something that isn't that abnormal. There's many of us in the culture and throughout history. We've just been forced to live on the fringe, on the edge, for safety.
Gotcha. Well, Taylor, Lianne, Chandler, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your story. Let everyone know how they can get the book. Pre-orders and stuff, I'm sure, are started. And, of course, to follow you across social media.
The funny thing is the book comes out September 20th. The pre-order will go up on my website, TaylorLianneChandler.com, tomorrow. You can follow me on social media at TLC. And if you don't know how to remember all that, I'm a Google click away.
I love it. Well, Taylor, much more success to you and your team and everyone that's involved, with the movement. And you are more than welcome back on my show to talk about the next book and the next book and the next project. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you so much for your love and support. Keeping in mind, anyone to tell you that you can't do what you want to do, you look them square in the face. You tell them, don't believe me. Just watch. Watch what I do. Watch me make it happen. Watch me make history. That's what we're doing this for, the history books. Social media is nice, but real life is so much better. Until next time, you guys.